Welcome back once again to the realm of Final Fantasy XIV. Today we're going back in time, just a little bit, to the previous patch. I didn't have an opportunity to record this during the previous patch, but there was an extreme primal added, and that is Nidhogg Extreme. So today, I've finally managed to snag a recording of this. So we're going to dive in and see just what this dragon has in store for us. I will say this is not an easy fight. I see even now a lot of people get hit by a lot of things. Now typically when the fight begins, the people in the party call different locations, be it southeast, north or northwest, or northeast or what have you. And the reason for this comes to later on, in that a tank needs the northeast or northwest towers, and the healers need to be at northeast or northwest as well. The 4 DPS need to go to the southeast or southwest, and they also, 2 of them, need to grab towers. This probably doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but the short of it is there are 4 towers, you need 4 people, 1 in each tower, and then another 4 people standing right next to them. You also need the healers standing next to the tanks. I didn't call a direction, but everybody else called a direction, which left me with the southwest tower. Now that that's been explained, we'll see how that actually plays out here shortly. Now, as usual, at the start of the fight, you have a brief amount of time to just do some damage. Of note is you want the tank to always be facing away from the party, as usual, because Nidhogg does have a very large cleave. Now, after doing some damage to him, he will fly up into the air. This is one of the more difficult things to spot, and I've been told that he will always come from a specific direction or one of 2 specific directions on the first time, but I've always had trouble with it, so I honestly sit in the middle of the arena and spin the camera until you find him. Nidhogg is going to dive bomb across the arena. This is a rather large AoE. It's going to cover that half of the arena. He can also go down the center of the arena, leaving you only a quarter of the width of the arena on either side. Now, just before he dives across, everybody is going to want to gather in the center of the arena, because you're also going to get hit by 1 or 2 more abilities. The first are the large eye vortex things that are going to appear in the ground randomly under various players. After they appear, you have a brief moment to get the crap out of the way. You still have the 4 arrows over top of people's heads. They need to spread out so they don't overlap and hit more people than necessary. Specifically, you don't want someone with an arrow getting hit by someone else's arrow. And then once everything's been hit, we all collapse back to the center of the arena to do it one more time. Nidhogg was a little bit kind and decided to go back over the exact same side of the arena. And we're a little bit spread out, so the eyes are going to be a little bit farther away. And then we collapse back to the center again as Nidhogg is coming back. Tank grabs him, points him away. We have a brief moment to do a little bit more damage before he readies his next move. Now, every now and then, you'll see Nidhogg use Deafening Bellow. I apologize, I can't tell you what this does. It doesn't appear to do damage or put a debuff on any of us. I don't think it buffs him, but it may put some kind of debuff on the tank. To be honest, I'm not really sure. So the next mechanic we're going to get to deal with is Hot Wing and Hot Tail. Hot Wing is going to be a large AoE that hits everything in the arena except for a small sliver directly down Nidhogg's center, in line with him. Hot Tail, which we will also see, does the opposite of that, hitting only in a line on the center of Nidhogg, leaving this area off to the sides safe. So for Hot Wing, we all gather in the center and make sure we're not getting hit by that. And then it looks like we've done enough damage to push him into the add phase. There are 3 adds here, and they all work just a little bit differently. There's the Shadow Brobanak, the Shadow Dragon, and the Shadow Phallic. One tank is going to want to grab the Brobanak, one tank is going to want to grab the Phallic, and everybody is going to want to try to kill the Brobanak. The Shadow Dragon does not follow a hate table. There's nothing you can do about him, so just avoid him. Keep your eye on him, though, as you're going to have to dodge some of his attacks as time goes on. Now, once again, to be perfectly honest, I can't tell you why we go for the Shadow Brobanak first, but we do. The Shadow Phallic, on the other hand, is going to be putting damage down, or vulnerability up, I should say, debuffs on the tank that he's fighting. So by the time you've killed the first add, the Shadow Phallic is going to be doing an unreasonable amount of damage to that tank, and the tank that was fighting the Brobanak is going to want to run over and take the Phallic from that tank. Then everybody piles on the Phallic. All this time, the Shadow Dragon is going to be wandering around the arena, doing a couple different moves. The 2 you're going to want to keep your eyes on are, you don't want to be standing directly in front of him because he has a cleave where he'll wander up, pull his arm back, wait a moment, and then swipe forward in a cleave. The other one is a fireball, where I believe he hits someone, the furthest one from him. So I think that can be baited away from everybody else, which I think we have 2 healers doing. Once the Phallic is done, everybody piles on the Shadow Dragon. Keep in mind to simply stay behind him, and a little ways in, he's going to put a vulnerability up debuff on everybody. This is a pretty good signal that you're getting pretty far into the add phase, and that you should be wrapping up pretty soon. As I think he does it after a set amount of time. He may also do it as a part of his own HP, at which point ignore most everything I just said about it. With the Shadow Dragon done, we're through the add phase, and we're moving into the second main phase of fighting Nidhogg himself, where he removes his guise of a dragon and instead takes on our good friend Destinian's form. He's going to use his ultimate and hit everybody with a raid-wide AoE. If you've killed the adds with plenty of time to spare, this should do very little damage to you, but get ready for some heals otherwise. Now in this form, he still has a frontal cleave, and very shortly in, you'll see 4 people targeted with large AoEs and an arrow over their heads. These are going to put down puddles on the ground that you're going to want to avoid. So all 4 of these people need to run to the back of the arena, spread out so you're not hitting each other with them, and get these as far away from everybody else as possible. Get out of the puddle, run back to Nidhogg, and get ready for Gearskugul, where there are a fair few line AoEs across the arena that you're going to want to dance around. Also, be aware that shortly after the puddles are put down, one person is going to be targeted by another marker. I believe they'll get an arrow over their head, but at the very least they'll get a tether tied to them. The person with this tether tied to them is going to get hit by a powerful hit. So whoever is tethered, make sure you're running to a place where a tank can run over and intercept that tether and take it from you, so the tank can eat this hit for you. Once the line AoEs have gone off, the tank has been hit by the tether AoE, you can go back to wailing on Nidhogg for just a brief moment. Another move that Nidhogg will be using over the course of the fight is A la Morn. This is, as far as I can tell, a pretty typical tank buster. Moving on to a mini-phase in Nidhogg's Estinian form, you see now Nidhogg's Fang and Nidhogg's Claw both appear. Now how these 2 work is a little bit complicated. You'll see 4 people targeted with the blue tether, and 4 people targeted with a red tether. The blue tether is connecting to Nidhogg's Fang, the red tether is connecting to Nidhogg's Claw. So a quick summary of this one is, Nidhogg's Fang can only be hurt by us. We have to run up and hit it. Nidhogg's Claw only gets hurt when the people that are tethered to it with red tethers get hurt. Nidhogg's Fang, on the other hand, is healed whenever the people tethered to it are hurt. So the phase plays out fairly simply. Everybody piles on and tries to kill Nidhogg's Fang. People with blue tethers need to avoid being hit by anything. The people with red tethers need to be the ones to get hit by everything. Particularly, there's going to be 2 attacks you'll see. One are little bubbles that slowly move towards Nidhogg's Fang. If they hit them, they explode and will 9 full heal Nidhogg's Fang. There's also a circular AoE targeted on a player that'll show up that the red people will want to get in. This AoE may appear on someone with a blue tether, at which point you just want to make sure that Nidhogg's Fang doesn't get hit by it, and other blue players don't get hit by it. So I've got a red tether, so I'm going to run over and wail on Nidhogg's Fang. You see these orbs show up, so I'm going to run over, stand in it, so when it finally triggers, it explodes, hurting me and in turn hurting the claw. We then go back to the Fang. There's the AoE marker, so we're all going to run over and everybody with a red tether gets hit by that, and then back on the Fang. If you don't kill the Fang fast enough, it will self-destruct, killing everybody. The orbs appear again, and partway through this, the tethers will change. We seem to have killed them before the tethers had a chance to change, as the claw managed to get killed and the Fang was all that was left, and we finish it off very shortly thereafter. Back on Nidhogg for a moment as another Alamorn hits the tank. And then Nidhogg flies up in the air again, as we're now, I guess, transitioning. This is another mini-phase that's going to act as sort of a transition to his final phase. These are the 4 pillars that I mentioned before. So you'll notice there's a tank going to the northwest and northeast towers. The healers then go to the northeast and northwest corner. The 4 DPS split up amongst the south, 2 DPS getting in the towers, and 2 DPS standing just outside of the towers. There's also puddles, which are hitting the 2 healers, so they're going to want to place those puddles far enough away that nobody really has to deal with those for a moment. So once the towers go off, there are now 4 puddles in the middle of the arena. More people are targeted with the red puddles. We've got some line AoEs that you'll want to dive around, and the tanks and healers are doing a little bit of a dance with that tether that I mentioned before, as the tanks go to take the tethers off of the 2 healers. From here, try to put the puddles far enough away that they're not going to get in anybody's way. Don't stand in the line AoEs, and you'll notice one large proximity AoE landing on one side of the arena that we're all going to want to get as far away from as possible. Let the proximity AoE hit, and then pile back in the middle. That should be the final mini-phase of Nidhogg's Estinian phase. From here, just DPS him a little bit, and that will move him into the final phase of the fight. He flies away, Utal takes some raid damage, and one last time we're going to have to deal with the dive bombs. Same as before. You watch for him appearing on one side, you make sure you're not going to get hit by his dive bomb, people are targeted by the red targets, and you have the weird eyeball AoEs appearing next to where we were all standing, so we should have all been grouped in the middle to start. And then we all pile back in the middle again for the final phase to begin proper. Now, throughout the final phase, Nidhogg is going to be occasionally casting Morn. This is going to act as your soft enrage, as it's a distributed AoE, so all the damage hit is distributed amongst all the people hit by it, and it hits multiple times. As the fight goes on, it's going to hit more and more and more times. Here it hits 4 times. But it'll eventually get to the point where it hits so many times you cannot heal through it. Now at this point in the fight, Nidhogg does not have a cleave, so everybody wants to pile together. This was A, to eat Morn, but also in preparation for his next attack. You can see the red orbs that appeared in the two corners of the arena. After a time, these are going to explode Bomberman style and a plus sign around them, which is going to leave pretty much no place safe except the center of the arena when they go off. And shortly after that, more appear in the center, which is going to do another plus AoE, leaving only the four corners safe. For the moment, we stay stacked right where we are, though, because these orbs will explode in the order they appeared, so we want to stand in the center first. Nidhogg is also going to cast Hot Wing at this point, so you want to stay in line with him, which should be fairly easy, considering everybody should be stacked in front of him already. And then just as Hot Wing is going off, more eyeball AoEs will appear underneath everybody, which is why we all needed to stack. So from here, we drop the eyeball AoEs, we run further into Nidhogg, so we don't get hit by Hot Wing, and we dodge the eyeball AoEs, and then the instant both of those are clear, you run diagonally out to get out of the way of the plus sign AoE that's going to appear in the middle. Also, you'll see the little red arrow AoE appear over some people. As long as you're spreading out, you just don't want to stack on top of each other when you place these down in the various corners. Once all is said and done, back on Nidhogg. Another Morn, which hits 5 times now, and you have a brief time to get some good damage in on Nidhogg. He does get his cleave back here, but he was not cleaving when we were grouped up before. And then the next attack here is going to be very similar to the attack we just did, only these various orbs are going to appear in a different order. This time you saw the one in the center appear first, followed by one in the southwest corner, and lastly one in the northeast corner. So we all want to run and pile in to the far northeast corner. This is so we can A, drop the eyeball AoEs, and so we don't get hit by the exploding middle fireballs. So to dodge the eyeballs, the instant the fireballs in the middle have exploded, get out of the way of the ones you're currently standing under, and then get ready for Hot Tail. Hot Tail is, as before, going to hit in a direct line under Nidhogg, so you need to be standing off to one side or the other. You also need to be wary of the fireballs exploding, and note that you only have about a quarter of the arena to be genuinely safe. All I can say at this point is try to get somewhere safe. Depending on which direction Nidhogg is facing, you may just be in a place with no good safe spot. If you can't get out of the way of Hot Tail, just eat Hot Tail. It's far better to get hit by Hot Tail than it is to get hit by the exploding fireballs. Everybody piles up again for another Morn, and at this point, the pattern repeats. He will go back and forth between these two different sets of fireballs and moves until he dies. Or you enrage and everybody dies. And there we have Nidhogg Extreme. Sorry it took so long getting this one to everybody, but I'm glad I finally did, and that catches us right up to where we need to be. Until next time, everyone.